Hello everybody, this is Tyler here once again from the Character Workshop, and before I get started on today's review, I guess you could say, I'm going to be doing a mini review of the Blu-ray set for the movie that I'm going to be talking about very shortly, the Wallace Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit Blu-ray. So, right off the gate, I'm not going to criticize the movie itself. You'll see more of my thoughts on the movie once I review it, but in terms of the cover, it unfortunately suffers from what a lot of DVD and Blu-ray re-releases of older animated movies suffer from. At least like DreamWorks and Blue Sky and all that. They have these like bland covers where they just show the characters in like a generic background and that's it. So yeah, that's like my only gripe with the Blu-ray set, but other than that, not much else to say. Also, I do kind of like how the Were-Rabbit in particular is right behind Wallace. More on that when I review the movie. But anyways, there's that spine, a little image of Gromit right there. And in the back showed a few screenshots and Wallace and Gromit's poses from the actual poster of the film, which honestly, I feel like if they used the poster of the movie on this cover, it would have looked better, because that's a pretty cool poster. I know there's like a weird shadow from my camera. I do apologize for that. But yeah, there's a little description and the bonus features. It has commentary on the film, deleted scenes, how Wallace and Gromit went to Hollywood, behind the scenes of Curse of the Were-Rabbit, a day in the life at Aardman, how to build a bunny, and then the stage Fright short film, which I might do a mini review of after this. But yeah, lots of reviews in this review. This is a Halloween special after all, so lots of stuff to... Anyways, here's a little surprise guest, Scarlett. Hello. So you've decided to show up in my mini Blu-ray review of the movie. Anyways, one other thing I will show is, of course, the inside and what the disc looks like. I do like this purple color they use for the disc. That's kind of cool. I like that. And there's like advertisements for other DreamWorks movies on Blu-ray and DVD that also use that generic style covers that I brought up earlier, and yeah, unfortunately, Curse of the Were-Rabbit's not much different. Yeah, anyways, that's my mini review of the Blu-ray. Now time to actually review the movie itself. Hello everybody, this is Tyler here once again from the Character Workshop. Welcome to the It Came From England Halloween special. So, I've done a good amount of spooky related It Came From England episodes in the past, but this is the first time that I'm doing an entire special talking about something. Now, for the lighting, I was going to go with red or green, but for some reason, actually orange would have been a good color too, but anyways, for some reason my lights would not register whenever I go with a different color besides blue. Like when I try to go with red, the lights just automatically turn off for some reason, but I don't know. Something weird going on with my my lights, but that's fine. Anyways, so if you saw my little mini review of the Blu-ray set, you know I'm talking about Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. This was the first feature-length movie to star the Wallace and Gromit duo, who previously appeared in 3 short films prior to the release of the movie, that being A Grand Day Out in 1989, The Wrong Trousers in 1993, and A Close Shave from 1995. Now this film, funny enough, came out exactly 10 years after A Close Shave. Curse of the Were-Rabbit came out in 2005. It came out on October 7th in the US, and then it came out a week later in the UK. So, and also, this was not only was it the first Wallace and Gromit feature film ever, it was the second feature-length film done by Aardman, the animation studio who produces and owns Wallace and Gromit, and also the second film that Aardman has done in collaboration with DreamWorks Animation. And kind of more on their little partnership later on down the line. But of course, 5 years prior, in 2000, they did their first film, Chicken Run, and the film did very successful that Jeffrey Katzenberg, the CEO of DreamWorks Animation, wanted another film from Aardman, specifically one featuring the Wallace and Gromit characters, so It took about a couple years, but Nick Park, as well as the rest of the Aardman crew, did end up making a Wallace and Gromit movie. And how well did it turn out? Well, sit right back, get some popcorn, and if you're one of those people that like candy corn, get some candy corn as well for the occasion. But anyways, let us talk about Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. So the film's intro starts off with a little bit of a montage where the camera pans through Wallace and Gromit's house and you see various photographs of the two characters together. And funny enough, the first one they showed, which was apparently a picture of Gromit back when he was a puppy, celebrating his birthday, and you see Wallace next to him, and Wallace has like a full-on beard and hair, and it's really funny that like Wallace started out having hair and then ended up being bald, I guess. Then again, that does go with age, but that's just really funny to point out. But yeah, it's a nice little sequence. It also plays the Wallace and Gromit theme, the one we all know and love. And as soon as it said Wallace and Gromit, it then immediately cuts to basically the night sky, where the Curse of the Were-Rabbit logo shows up, and it's really jarring, the tone shift of the intro. Like, it started off like all happy and wholesome and stuff before kind of going a bit creepy, and I'm like, whoa. It's just kind of a turn of events, I guess you could say. So in terms of the plot of the film, Toddington Hall, which is a fancy building in Wallace and Gromit's neighborhood, was hosting an annual giant vegetable competition, and Wallace and Gromit in this film have a career as being a humane pest control, which is known as anti-pesto, and they basically protect people's vegetables from rabbits. And one evening, basically after capturing rabbits found in the garden with Lady Toddington, who was voiced by Helena Bonham Carter, I think is how you pronounce her name. She voices Lady Toddington, and basically Wallace and Gromit, they noticed that there were a whole bunch of rabbits at Toddington Hall, and they take one of Wallace's inventions, the Bunvac 6000, to basically get rid of the rabbits in a humane way, of course without harming them. And what's really interesting, because prior to this scene being shown, during the morning of that day, it was shown that apparently Wallace and Gromit keep the rabbits as pets, I guess you can say, with Gromit kind of preparing food for the rabbits and sending them down holes to where they were. So that was kind of nice and interesting. But anyways, after basically getting rid of all the rabbits that were in Lady Toddington's garden, and from an earlier scene in the film where Gromit kind of had Wallace going on a vegetable diet, which Wallace wasn't into, and tried to go for cheese, and Wallace tried to use another one of his experiments, the mind manipulation nomadic, to change it so that he can not like cheese anymore. That was before, of course, they got the phone call from Lady Toddington to go to her place to begin with. And basically that gives Wallace the idea to combine the Bunvac with the mind manipulation machines to make it so that the rabbits don't want to eat vegetables, so that everybody's vegetables can be saved and nobody has to worry about their vegetables being eaten before the competition. So that was cool. And however, unfortunately, while Wallace and Gromit were both trying to brainwash the rabbits, Wallace, who was on his sofa while this was happening, accidentally hits a switch with his foot, and it causes one of the rabbits to suck through the tube and onto Wallace's head, where the mind manipulation nomadic part is. And of course it ended up working in the end, because the rabbit that was affected by it did not want vegetables at all, so they decided to keep the rabbit and decided to call him Hunch. However, that same night, after Wallace's somewhat successful attempt to try to have the rabbits not eat vegetables, a giant rabbit-like creature, on the other hand, starts to devour everybody's vegetables in the neighborhood. And the duo unfortunately failed to respond because there were so many people that were like in trouble at the same time. And the next day during a town hall meeting, The creature was revealed to be none other than the were-rabbits, which is apparently a creature that exists in that universe. And then, another character, which, of course, we'll get into over the course of this discussion, is a hunter by the name of Victor Quartermain, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, voiced by Ralph Fiennes. I do apologize if I mispronounce any of these guys' names. But anyways, he decides to hunt the creature down, but Lady Toddington, who of course Victor has a crush on in the film, persuades everybody in town to give Wallace Gromit another chance. And then, basically after another unsuccessful attempt to try to trap the were-rabbits, where they try to use like a fake female were-rabbits, and while this was going on, Wallace Gromit find out that Hutch, the rabbit from earlier, was actually mutated. And Wallace assumed that Hutch was the rabbit that was causing the whole situation to happen, and decides to go tell Lady Toddington about it. So then Gromit then makes like a bigger cage for him to be put in, but however, while Gromit did that, and after he was done, he noticed that there were other like tracks, muddy tracks past the basement, and he tries to go find out where it is. And then he notices while he was looking and walking that the footprints started to become less and less rabbit-like and more human-like, like human feet. And then he looks towards the door that it was coming from, and it was none other than Wallace's room. And then when he opened Wallace's room, he found out that there was half-eaten vegetables inside. And Gromit was shocked by this, and from there, we find out that Wallace himself is the were-rabbit. So while at Toddington Hall, when Wallace was telling Lady Toddington that he captured the were-rabbits, Wallace was then, after visiting there, he was cornered by Victor, who, as I mentioned before, has a crush on Toddington and wanted to marry her for that, and also her money as well, which I noticed that a lot of movies tend to have like villains that like love like rich characters mostly for their money, I guess, and Victor's honestly no different, which is interesting. However, while Victor was trying to fight Wallace over it, Wallace, as the moon comes up, transforms into the were-rabbit under the full moon, and he disappears. And then, of course, now seeing the perfect chance for him to get rid of Wallace once and for all, Victor tries to find a way to kill Wallace under the guise of him being the were-rabbit, of course. Says him and Gromit are the only people that know that Wallace is the were-rabbit at this point of the film. So he obtains 3 24-karat gold bullets from the town's vicar, who's named Reverend Clement Hedges, and decides to plan to use them to get rid of Wallace. And now we finally get to the day of the vegetable competition, and Gromit reveals to Wallace that the experiment actually swapped his personality and Hutch's personalities, which, at this point in the film, Wallace Gromit then realized that Hutch now has become a bit more human. The fact that he's now wearing clothes and is able to speak a bit, of course, with archived lines of Wallace from both wrong trousers and a close shave, but high-pitched. It officially confirms to Wallace that he is the were-rabbit, he is the monster, which he didn't believe at first when Gromit was trying to tell him earlier. And while while Wallace was trying to figure out how to fix his machine, he wasn't able to do it and basically gives up, but then realizes that Hutch, who has a bit of Wallace's personality in him, is able to fix it, so they decide that'd be a good idea to have Hutch work on fixing the machine. But however, while they were trying to sort problems out, Lady Toddington actually visits Wallace to inform about Victor's plan to kill the were-rabbits. And as the moon rises, Wallace slowly transforms into the were-rabbit and trying to hide it as best as he can from Lady Toddington. He had a hat over his head to try to cover his ears. He was trying to cover his face as his teeth were getting bigger. And yeah, so she decides to leave. And then, literally not too long after Toddington leaves, Victor then arrives and attempts to shoot Wallace, but Gromit decides to help Wallace escape by wearing the same fake were-rabbit lady that they were using to try to catch the were-rabbit earlier. And this ended up working, and basically the townsfolk thought that Wallace, not Wallace, what am I talking about? The townsfolk thought that the were-rabbit was killed after they heard a gunshot, and Victor also thought that the were-rabbit was dead. But of course, he realized that he ended up shooting the fake were-rabbits, and because of that, he had Gromit trapped in a cage, and decided to continue on his plan to try to kill Wallace. Which Gromit, as a way to get himself out of his little situation, I don't know how he did this. They never really explained in the film how Gromit was able to get Hutch to go down to their van to get Gromit out. They never really explained that, but yep, that's what happened. Gromit was saved, and him and Hutch go to the vegetable competition. And then at the competition, Victor, who used all 3 of his gold bullets and tried to convince the Victor to try to give him more, and the Victor replies saying, well, they don't come cheap, you know. So he decides to take an elephant gun and the golden carrot trophy to use as ammunition to try to kill Wallace. And at the competition, Wallace, who of course is now in full were-rabbit form, carries Toddington to the top of the hall and reveals his true identity to her. And then, meanwhile, Gromit, who is trying to save Wallace, gets confronted by Victor's dog named Philip in a dogfight using airplanes taken from one of the fairground attractions at that place. And Gromit then steers his plane into Victor's plane of fire as he shoots at Wallace, which causes the bullet to hit the plane that Gromit was on instead, basically saving Wallace's life. And then the damaged plane falls, and Wallace jumps on to grab Gromit to try to save his life, breaking the fall before they both land in a, surprisingly enough, a cheese tent. And then Toddington, realizing that Victor knew that Wallace was the were-rabbit and was trying to kill him, she then basically knocks out Victor with her giant prized carrots, and then basically dumps him, basically, now knowing his true intentions and everything. So then, while Victor was knocked out, Gromit then grabs the fake were-rabbit lady outfit and puts it on Victor, which caused the town people to believe that it was the were-rabbit, and they try to go after him. And then, assuming that Wallace was going to die, because he did have quite a big fall, so as one of the last efforts to try to hopefully bring Wallace back, Wallace did ended up morphing back into a human while this was happening. So he actually Gromit grabbed a slice of Swiss bishop cheese, which then wakes up Wallace, realizing he's back to normal, back to loving cheese, and just in general, back to being alive. So Toddington decides to give the Gold Carrot Award to Gromit for his vegetable, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then decides to convert the Toddington Hall grounds to be like a nature reserve for other rabbits. And Lady Toddington, who thanks Wallace and Gromit for the work and says, oh, if only you could stay here at Toddington Hall. And then Wallace replies saying, oh, don't worry. There will always be a part of me here. And then Toddington was confused, like, what? So then, using the Bunvac 6000, they bring in Hutch out of it. So yeah, basically Wallace was right. There now is a part of himself at Toddington Hall with Hutch, which is the rabbit that has a lot of Wallace's traits. Yeah, holy cow, that was a lot to go through. But yep, that was Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. And I gotta say, just like the short films, absolutely fantastic. I don't know if I can really say what hasn't been said about this film. The animation's great. You could tell that Aardman really wants to put as much detail into their films as possible. So, and it's one of the reasons why I always appreciate stop motion. I know some people tend to get creeped out by it, but I personally love them. You know, it's definitely my second favorite form of art after 2D animation, so yeah, I absolutely love stop motion animation. That was basically it in terms of the plot and what I think about this movie. And it's also really hilarious too. There was a lot of really funny moments in there, like with the scene that I talked about where Gromit and Victor's dog Philip were in their planes, like, at a chase. And at one point, like, Philip gets onto Gromit's plane and tries to, like, push him off the cliff. However, the plane soon stops while they were on the roof because it was a carnival ride plane, so it, of course, needed money in order to keep running. So there was a joke where, like, Gromit and then eventually Philip tried to, like, find, like, a coin to use to bring the machine back up. It's so funny because they stopped their feud for just a little bit, just to make sure that plane keeps going, and then go back to their usual shenanigans, which is definitely one of the funniest moments in the movie. And also there's a few, like, adult jokes in there too. Not a whole lot, not like live action Cat in the Hat or anything, but, like, there was a decent amount. Like, when Wallace and Gromit first find all the rabbits at Huntington Hall, Wallace was like, wow, they're breeding, like, well, rabbits. As a funny little nod to the phrase breeding like rabbits. And at the very end of the film, when Wallace was brought back to life, I guess you could say, and realizing that he wasn't wearing any clothes, Gromit put, like, a box on him, and the box said contains nuts. Holy crap, I didn't realize it until, like, more recently. I'm like, wow. They somehow got away with that joke. That's really funny. Of course, the characters are as charming as always. Wallace is his charming self. Gromit, despite not talking, is very expressive as per usual, and also just in general, him and Wallace are both great characters. I can't really stress that enough. Like, it's so funny how they're able to, like, make Gromit kind of, like, show emotion, like, without a mouth. Like, mostly with his, like, his eyes and his body motion. It's fantastic. I don't think I ever brought that up in any of my reviews of the short films, but yeah. That's one thing I really like about Wallace and Gromit. One of the many things I love about them. There's a whole list of things I can go about on. And in terms of the new characters, they're pretty cool as well. I like them. This is the very first time we had a human villain in the Wallace and Gromit universe with Victor, and I like him as a character a lot. Especially Ralph Fiennes, who did a pretty stellar job voicing him. And Ralph Fiennes, for anybody who doesn't know, he played Voldemort in the Harry Potter movies, so yeah, that's cool. It was really funny because that film came out the same year as Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Well, Goblet of Fire came out the same year, I should say. Not the entire Harry Potter franchise, holy moly. And then funny enough, it's not just Ralph Fiennes who is a Harry Potter actor in this film. Helena Bonham Carter, the actress who played Lady Todington, she was also in the Harry Potter movies. I believe, I'm trying to remember what character she played as. I forgot her name. I think it was like Bellatrix Lestrange, I think was her name. I gotta look this up. My apologies. Yeah, Bellatrix Lestrange, I was correct. Woo! I haven't watched Harry Potter in forever, and wow. I'm glad I know that. And man, she was in a lot of movies in 2005. It wasn't just Harry Potter. Was she in Goblet of Fire? I need to look this up again. No, it was in Order of the Phoenix, I think. No. Yeah, it was Order of the Phoenix. Okay, she wasn't... Okay, scratch that. She was not in Goblet of Fire. Okay, my bad. I got her confused with Ralph Fiennes for some reason. But yeah, so there was a good amount of movies that she was in that year. Besides Curse of the Were-Rabbit, she was also in 2 of Tim Burton's films. She was in Corpse Bride and also Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, so... 2005 was a very busy year for her, and Todington was a very charming character, and definitely one of the more interesting side characters, I would say, in the world of Wallace and Gromit. And also, funny enough, the second character, like, in the Wallace and Gromit universe that was like a love interest for Wallace in a way. It was never explicitly said, although she did at one point say in the film that she had feelings for Wallace when she was telling Wallace about Victor's plan to kill the were-rabbit. So, there's that. And, yeah, unlike with Close Shave, where Wallace's female interest in that film kind of, like, went away, like, we could assume from the context of this film, like, she's there to stay, and I'm sure she's still in contact with both Wallace and Gromit, so at least I would say it's a bit more of a happy ending in Wallace's case than in Close Shave. I'll say that for sure. And other than that, there aren't too many, like, any other, like, notable characters in the film, besides Hutch, which, as I brought up before, he was very similar to Wallace to the point where, like, all of his voice lines in the movie are literally just Wallace's lines, but, like, high-pitched. And not just ones from the film itself, but also in
Ron Trousers and a Close Shave. Like, they took some of those dialogue stuff and used it for Hutch, but pitched the volume up. So, that's kind of funny. And I didn't notice that as a kid, and now you kind of realize it when you, like, are older and realize, oh wait, this is literally just Wallace's voice but high-pitched. That's essentially what Hutch was. And I'm not sure if he had, like, any new dialogue or dialogue exclusive to him, but yeah. There's that. But yeah. And of course, in terms... How can I talk about the actors without talking about Peter Sallis himself, the voice of Wallace? Charming as always. Like, I can't say anything about about Peter Sallis that... Have I ever really talked about him in my previous reviews? I'm honestly not sure. It's been a while since I've watched my Wallace Gromit short film reviews, so I'm not sure about that, but he's great as always. And this, of course, was his only feature film that he voiced Wallace in, so there's that to point out. But yeah, in terms of that, not very many other characters that were super noteworthy in the film to really talk about, besides those 4. Well, 5, because of Hutch, but yeah, that's really all I gotta say. The film's amazing, great characters, story's pretty cool. When I was watching this, I had no clue that Wallace himself would end up being the Were-Rabbit, so honestly, that cover of the Blu-ray that I showed you and talked about how the Were-Rabbit's behind Wallace, it actually makes a lot of sense. But since I'm basically done talking about the actual film itself, now it's time to actually talk about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff about this film, because there's a good amount of stuff to talk about. So as I brought up before, it was announced that in 2000, around the same year Chicken Run came out, that Wallace and Gromit were going to get their own film. And funny enough, Aardman's next film after Chicken Run was originally going to be a Tortoise and the Hare adaptation. I don't know how that would have went, but it was abandoned by the studio in 2001, a year later, because of script problems. And Nick Park, the creator and director of the Wallace and Gromit franchise, and then also Steve Box, one of the other directors, have quoted that this movie was the first vegetarian horror film, as like the creature in there was after vegetables and not so much like humans or trying to kill other beings. So that's really interesting to point out. So funny enough, the title of the film was actually not supposed to be called Curse of the Were-Rabbit. It was originally meant to be called The Great Vegetable Plot, but the title changed as the market research didn't really like it, and honestly, they were pretty right in that department. And apparently the initial release date for the film was going to be November 2004, and production of the film started in September of 2003, and also the film was originally going to be set to release after the November 2004 deadline didn't work out. It was originally scheduled for September 30th, 2005. And then in July of 2003, the film was officially referred to as, by its full title, The Curse of the Were-Rabbits. So, because this film was like a collaboration between Aardman and DreamWorks Animation, there's kind of 2 markets you gotta like keep in mind. The British market with Aardman, and I guess the American market with DreamWorks Animation. So, Nick Park said that after test screenings for the audiences, including children, of course, which was kind of the main purpose of the film, was to appeal to children, he adjusted the character's speech to kind of appeal a little bit more to American audiences, to try to get DreamWorks happy, I guess you could say. And Nick Park pointed out that he was sent notes by DreamWorks a lot, which stressed him during the production of the film. And he recalled one note that said that Wallace's cars should be trendier, which, of course, Nick Park heavily disagreed with, because he felt that making things look old-fashioned made it look a little more ironic, and honestly, it just adds to the charm of Wallace and Gromit. I don't know what DreamWorks was talking about. So the film was released in theaters, as I brought up before, on October 7th in the US of 2005, and then a week later in the UK. And apparently the film was featured, when it was released in theaters, it had a short film released with it, which was The Madagascar Penguins in a Christmas Caper, which was a short film starring the penguins from the Madagascar films. And then one other thing I should bring up about the production of the film is Gromit's prized vegetable, which has been shown a few times in the film and kind of played into a part a little bit, because Gromit was planning on participating in the vegetable competition as well, which he ended up somehow winning at the very end. But so in the UK, his vegetable is referred to as a marrow, which, from my research, a marrow is usually what the UK refers to as what we call here in the US a zucchini. And because, of course, zucchini is a 3-syllable word opposed to marrow, and doesn't even sound close to marrow, so when the film was shown in the US, the dialogue was changed so the character said melon instead of marrow, because that word, I guess, kind of fits the word marrow a bit more, I guess. And also, I noticed this when I watched the film, but whenever the characters do mention melon, you actually don't see their mouths on screen. Like, you see them, like, from the back, per se, when they say this line. So that's actually a really clever way to, like, get characters to say different stuff in both dubs and not, you know, have to film, like, separate scenes to have their lips sync to them saying that. So that's actually clever. I like that. Overall, from what I hear from, like, Nick Park, yeah, it was kind of stressful working on the film with, I guess, DreamWorks and Jeffrey Katzenberg kind of like breathing down their necks in a way to try to make the film appear more American. But thankfully, a lot of the times, a majority of the time, Aardman did get the upper hand in a lot of it. So the film did end up still being very iconic and just charming in a lot of ways. So glad that Aardman at least got the W there. And in terms of financial, the movie did successfully very well internationally. It earned $192 million over a $30 million budget, so that was pretty well. However, according to DreamWorks Animation, the film did pretty bad in the US. So, yeah, that was unfortunate, but it did really well internationally. But did that change the film's reception? Absolutely not. Just like every other thing Wallace Gromit touches, it's blazing with positivity and good feedback. Everybody loves Curse of the Were-Rabbits. So the film did really well. It got a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Metacritic gave it a score of 87 out of 100. And then CinemaScore gave it a B+. So, and the film did so well that it actually got nominated for, not nominated, it won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature Film in 2006. So, Jeffrey Katzenberg and DreamWorks in general, you call this film a failure? It won your Oscar. It won an Oscar for Best Animated Film, beating, well, like Disney didn't really have any noteworthy stuff that year, but yeah. You think that's a failure? It gave you guys an Oscar. Keep in mind, I think Curse of the Were-Rabbit was the second DreamWorks film to win an Oscar for Best Animated Film. Besides the first Shrek movie, that is. And also, in general, it was the second not-American film to win Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. So, yeah. Call it a failure all you want, Jeffrey Katzenberg, but it got you an award, and people love it to this very day. So, yep. Not really much else to say about that. But yeah, that was all I really had to say about Curse of the Were-Rabbit. That was a lot to go for, but one other thing I want to briefly talk about in this special, because this is a special after all, I gotta, extend the length, you can say. I am going to be talking about the short film that was included as a bonus feature on the DVD and Blu-ray release of Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and that is Stage Fright. So I am going to be talking about that short film and do a bit of a mini review of it. So Stage Fright was a short film that was shown in 1997. It was produced, directed, and written by Steve Box, which, funny enough, he ended up later becoming the co-director of Curse of the Were-Rabbit. So I guess it kind of makes sense that this short film was a bonus feature in Curse of the Were-Rabbit. So the story of this film features Tiny, who is a dog trainer who basically hides with his dogs in a wicker basket on a stage of an abandoned vaudeville theater. And he emerges every now and then to have his dogs practice a trick, attacking a straw hat by just saying the word hats. And then, however, a second man by the name of Arnold Hugh emerges menacingly onto the stage, and then Tiny, being kind of afraid of him, backs away from him and falls into an orchestra pit, getting his clothes snagged on a broken plank, making it look like he's about to fall. But then we cut to earlier in the timeline where Tiny had found one of his dogs missing while performing his trained dog show in the theater, and he fears that the crowd will no longer like the act, but his friend Daphne encourages him to keep going on with the show. And However, while him and his dogs were performing on stage, he gets booed by the audience, which the audience was more interested in the silent film that was playing, which stars Arnold and Daphne in there. And it features the missing dog that Tiny was looking for. Arnold then pressures her to not tell Tiny about the fact that he stole one of the dogs, and then goes on to make a string of successful movies with Daphne and the dogs. And he decides to take all the credits for it, for Tiny's training of the dogs, even though Tiny himself was the dog trainer, which Daphne reluctantly has to keep a secret. So Tiny then trains his dogs to jump up and place a boater on his head at his command. And then when Arnold tries to use this trick in one of his movies, though, it fails because, of course, he is taller than Tiny, so the trick wouldn't work as well. He then confronts Tiny about this and threatens to torture the animals if they can't reach his height. So, right off the start, Arnold, damn, awful guy, as we can tell. So, angered by Arnold threatening his dogs, Tiny decides to retrain them to attack instead, which prompted Arnold to leave the studio for the confrontation scene at the beginning of the film, which, of course, as we brought up earlier, was when Tiny was stuck on the thing by the pits. So Daphne decides that she no longer wants to work with Arnold and then follows him into the theater. So then she swings a sandbag across the stage, which knocks Arnold down and confesses her involvement to Tiny. And then Arnold then gets up and begins to try to strangle Daphne. So Tiny then delivers his attack command with his dogs. The dogs then advance menacingly towards Arnold, which he pulls a metal latch off the wall to try to use as a weapon, but it actually releases the movie screen, which falls on Arnold's head and kills him. Daphne then sees no sign of Tiny, assuming that he's dead, but then she turns back to the orchestra pit that he was about to fall down in, and he was actually lifted back up into view on the organ that had been used to provide background music for the movies. And it actually now glows white, being played by a specter, which Tiny climbs off. But Arnold's spirit, however, comes out of his body and steps onto the organist's beckoning. And the organ then just drops down out of sight, carrying terrified Arnold down to the underworld. And then as the theater begins to collapse, Daphne persuades Tiny to overcome his fear of rejection and go with her. And they and the dogs exit the lights to the outside world, and who knows what they do after that. But yeah, that was Stage Fright. Pretty interesting short film, I will say. And definitely, people put it out, this was one of Aardman's darkest films, and I guess you can kind of say so because it had a villain that was, like, kind of menacing in terms of, like, his, I guess, appearance, and also just the fact that he was trying to threaten Tiny's dogs in general also kind of made him a bit dark. I would definitely arguably say it was the darkest film that I've seen from Aardman. More so than this film. I mean, this film was very lighthearted in comparison to Stage Fright. But of course, it's not to say I don't like it. I do like the short film. It's a pretty decent one. I give it like a... I know I don't usually give scores for stuff. Actually, since I'm bringing that up, I should give Wallace Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit a score. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. It gets a perfect 10 from me. As to in terms of Stage Fright, I'll give it like maybe... I don't know. I'll be fair. I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's a decent film. Yeah, people kind of praised the animation for the film and also the lighting, but it also felt that it just wasn't that great of a film. And like, people criticized the non-linear telling of the story, which I guess I can kind of see the criticism in that because it starts off with something and then like kind of goes to a flashback. Like, it kind of confuses a lot of new audiences in a way, so I can kind of see the criticism of that. And feeling that they weren't, like, introduced to all three characters properly, so, yeah. I can actually can't argue with that. There wasn't really a whole lot of, like, screen time to really showcase, like, all the characters very well and their personalities, although we do get glimpses of that here and there, but, yeah, the film is only 11 minutes long, so there's only so few things you can do with it, so, yeah. But I do like the aesthetic of the film, I do like the setting, and of course the fact that it takes place during the silent film era, it's really cool. Yeah, Stage Fright's a pretty decent film. It won the BAFTA award for Best Animated Short Film in 1998, so that's, yeah, this Curse of the Were-Rabbit both won awards, so yeah. I can see why it was included as a bonus feature on the physical media releases of Curse of the Were-Rabbit. So, yeah. Not much else to say. But yeah, that's really all I gotta say about both Curse of the Were-Rabbits and my little mini review of the Stage Fright short film. Lots of Aardman stuff to talk about, and yeah, one of the main reasons why I did a review of Curse of the Were-Rabbit around this time is not only because of Halloween, but also because later this year, like, I don't know if it's this year or next year, but in a few months, we're getting a new Wallace Gromit film titled... What's the new film titled? I for some reason keep forgetting what it's going to be called. It's like... Oh wait, I found a title. Vengeance Most Foul. And it's apparently going to bring back Feathers McGraw from Wrong Trousers, so that's going to be really cool. One of the first times I think we've seen some continuity within Wallace Gromit, so that'd be awesome. And it's going to be released on Netflix January 3rd, 2025, but it will be available on BBC and BBC iPlayer on Christmas Day of 2024, so they'll get that film a bit early, so yeah. Anyways, but yeah, I'm really excited for that movie. I definitely plan on doing a review of that at some point, but yeah. In addition to that, there's something else Wallace Gromit related that's coming out that I'm really excited about. They're releasing the 4 short films, Grand Day Out, Wrong Trousers, A Close Shave, and Matter of Life and Death on 4K Ultra HD. Yep, we are getting the Wallace Gromit shorts on 4K. I am so looking forward to that, and I definitely want to get them just to see how these amazing short films look on 4K, because I'm sure they'll look great on there. I don't know that for sure. That's my speculation, but I'm looking forward to it, and I definitely plan on buying it when I can. So with that being said, with that long tangent out of the way, that's about it for my review of Curse of the Were-Rabbits and my mini review of the Blu-ray set that it came with, and also the Stage Fright short film. Hope you guys enjoyed it and sticked around to the end. And if you liked it, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more AK from England content, because guess what? Season 9 is happening, baby! Oh yeah! The show's coming back for a Season 9. Probably by the end of this year. I'm not sure yet, but we are fucking back, baby. Woo! Sorry. Gotta get that excitement out of me. Anyway, stay tuned for Season 9. Got lots planned for that season, and I got some scheduling to work out when it comes to Season 9, but that's a whole nother story. And leave a comment down below, let me know what you think about this special. That's about it. This is Tyler from the Character Workshop, signing out. Happy Halloween, everybody, and yes, Season 9. Let's go!